Antony Blinken literally wants to have members of the UN come and judge American racism. That's pathetic, and it's anti-American. It's not about spreading American values abroad. It's not about liberating people. It's about forwarding democratic domestic political interests. It's all wag the dog crap. Alrighty, so meanwhile, the Biden administration, while declaring that, American racism is at an all-time high and that Jim Crow is on the way, while they run the entire government, by the way, they are now pursuing an anti-American policy. It's an anti-American foreign policy. I don't know how else to describe this tweet from Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Now, I've given Blinken credit in the past for example, saying some relatively decent things about the Israel-Gaza conflict, for example. I've given Blinken and the foreign policy team some credit for the things that Joe Biden said with regard to Vladimir Putin. But this is truly egregious. And the fact that it's been largely overlooked by the media is insane to me. So he tweeted this out. I completely missed this until one of my producers made me aware of it this morning. It's wild. Secretary of State Blinken tweeted this, quote, "Responsible nations must not shrink from scrutiny of their human rights record. Rather, they should be transparent with the intent to grow and do better. That is why I'm announcing a formal invitation for the UN Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Forms of Racism to visit the United States." This is patently mad. I mean, it's crazy. The United Nations is the Mos Eisley of international politics. It is a wretched hive of scum and villainy. The notion that we should have auditors from Sudan and China and Russia and Malaysia and all of these other countries that can't hold a candle to us in terms of human rights come and audit domestic American racism. It's a political tool by Antony Blinken, which so often foreign policy is to Democrats. Right? This is why Barack Obama, in his very early days, before he was even president, did a European tour. A lot of people in the United States were saying to themselves, why is Barack Obama, a senator in the United States, running for the American presidency, attempting to go abroad and do speeches in like Berlin and Paris? And the answer is because what Democrats really wish to do is suggest that other countries, their opinions ought to matter with regard to domestic American politics. The rest of the world is judging us. It's sort of Greta Thunberg syndrome writ large. They're judging you. They're judging. And so Antony Blinken literally wants to have members of the UN come and judge American racism. That's pathetic, and it's anti-American. No one has the moral stature to come into the United States, the most racially diverse place on Earth, most racially diverse democracy on planet Earth, and most racially tolerant diverse democracy on planet Earth, by the way, and then start lecturing us on how racist we are. And the fact that this administration is welcoming them in, they're welcoming them in the same way that the Department of Justice under Merrick Garland is going to go into police departments and simply make up reports about how police departments are racist and then cram down consent decrees. The idea here will be the UN issues a report on how terrible and racist America is. And there it is magically. The only way to alleviate this deep and brutal and abiding racism is to do all the things that Joe Biden wants to do. So Joe Biden and Antony Blinken can't convince you that America is racist and terrible. So they will bring in international institutions to call America racist and terrible and deride the United States on the international stage so that they can say we need to do all the things we already wanted to do because, after all, the world expects it of us. It's not who we are. It's so shameless and it's so yucky. Okay, the reality is that, as I talked about on the show yesterday and the day before, to most people who are seeking freedom on planet Earth, the United States is the place you go. The United States is the place you go for racial tolerance. The United States has a higher household income for Nigerian Americans than does for white Americans, has a higher household income for Asian Americans than for white Americans. For a supposedly white supremacist country, we're doing a horrible job of it here in the United States. And yet the continuous push from the Democrats is that America is deeply racist, and the whole goal here is to mobilize minority voters who supposedly are going to fight the revanchist Republican racism that inevitably will fall, despite the fact that, again, it does not exist, and it is very silly. Now, all of this is part and parcel of treating American foreign policy as basically a domestic political weapon. It's not about spreading American values abroad. It's not about liberating people. It's not about ensuring a safer and more secure world for American interests. It's not about any of those things. It's about forwarding democratic domestic political interests. It's all wag the dog crap. It is all about doing things that benefit the Democrats politically, domestically. I mean, that is why Joe Biden is pulling out of Afghanistan. Make no mistake, that is not about forwarding American interests. It's not about making America more safe, and it is not about protecting American troops. It is about Joe Biden wanting to be able to say that he withdrew from Afghanistan, unlike all of his predecessors, and then thinking that the American people are going to cheer, even as women are stuffed back into burqas and stuffed back into basements, and the Taliban take over the country and continue to foster terrorism in the region. Because Joe Biden wants the political win. It is that simple. And now, when Secretary Blinken is welcoming in UN special reporters to talk about American racism, you know how much I care about what the UN has to say about anything having to do with morality? This turd bucket of an organization? I could not care less what the UN has to say about anything. The UN is a despicable dumpster fire of an organization where we're supposed to take seriously countries like Yemen on human rights? No. The answer should be, by any patriotic president and any patriotic administration, no. But instead, we're actively seeking out the opinions of the UN on American racism, which of course is designed solely to create pressure domestically. We're in a battle for the culture and for our values. Like and subscribe to help keep our videos on the front line of the fight and top of your feed.